Those excuses seemed like exactly that, excuses, last weekend when Sophia was rushed to the hospital unconscious.
The story that I was getting was that she was choking on her food, on peanut butter and jelly when she was asleep.
But doctors said Sophia was bleeding in her brain and had other injuries. Exeter police now treating her death as a murder.
Sophia Acosta was born on February 5, 2008, to Erica Smith and Obadiah Acosta. She also had a younger sister named Alexa. Sophia showed love to everyone she came in contact with. She was known to be happy, lovable, and silly. Some of Sophia's favorite things included princesses, coloring, and dressing up. At some point, Sophia's parents would go their separate ways. However, Sophia's mother, Erica, was granted full custody of her along with her little sister. In September of 2010, Erica would let a man by the name of Christopher Cheery move in with the three of them to their apartment that was located in Exeter, California. Erica would say that the reason she had let Christopher move in with them in the first place was because she was trying to help him kick his heroin habit. The two would begin dating a few months later, and regardless of the reason why Erica said she originally let Christopher stay, they soon started using heroin together. And this is about the time that the abuse of Sophia started. Erica would also later claim that Christopher had forced her to use heroin. I doubt that. On May 7, 2011, Christopher had given Sophia a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. When she was done, he brought her and her little sister Alexa upstairs for a nap. After laying the girls down, Christopher then returned back downstairs. But less than 2 hours later, Christopher discovered Sophia unresponsive in her room. He yelled down to Erica, who came running up. 911 was then called, and Erica and Christopher then began performing CPR on Sophia. When the first responders arrived at apartment number 9 at the Exeter Apartments, Sophia was lying naked, wet, and in the middle of the living room floor on a towel. Christopher was standing only a few feet away from her, while Erica was just outside the apartment, crying. So while Erica visibly appeared upset, Christopher appeared rather nervous and fearful, police would say. One of the police officers who had been first to respond to the scene found that Sophia still had a faint pulse, and she was immediately taken to the hospital. She would later be life-flighted to Children's Hospital Central California, and her little sister Alexa was taken away by Child Protective Services. When the toddler arrived at the hospital, she was completely unresponsive and would have to be kept alive on a ventilator. She had bruising on her buttocks, and she had bleeding coming from her mouth as well as her private areas. So in addition to the likely sexual abuse, Sophia also had some traumatic head injuries. Her brain was bleeding and it showed a lack of oxygen and blood flow. This was consistent with shaking plus impact. Little Sophia was brain dead. On May 11th, after Sophia had been in the hospital for 4 days, as her father Obi sat by her side, she would be taken off of life support and then pronounced dead. Now, Sophia's father Obi had been told by Erica that Sophia choked on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when she was first brought to the hospital. He didn't find out anything else until later on. The doctors at Children's Hospital reported to the Exeter Police Department the extent of Sophia's injuries, including that she had internal brain hemorrhaging, and they believed that her death was non-accidental. The doctor who treated Sophia said it was one of the worst cases he's ever seen in his career, and he believed it looked like she had been tortured. This doctor had also focused on child protection and child abuse for more than 25 years. He also believed that Sophia was sexually assaulted and likely struck in the abdomen hard twice. She was also subjected to severe impact by her head by some kind of object. An autopsy later revealed that Sophia had died from blunt force trauma, and as doctors had suspected, she had been sexually assaulted. Sophia had bruises on her scalp as well as underneath her scalp and on her abdomen. She also tested positive for marijuana. Around 9 p.m. on the night that Sophia had been rushed to the hospital, police would search the apartment where she had lived. They said the entire place was a mess. There was also some blood spatter found in the children's bedroom, and Sophia's comforter was covered in vomit and feces. Downstairs, investigators discovered a pillow and blanket pile, and some of the items in this appeared to have dried bloodstains on them. Erica would tell officers that it was odd that these pillows and blankets had been stacked because Christopher normally didn't clean up anything. She also said that a few of these blankets and pillows had actually belonged in the master bedroom, and she was unsure why they were down in the living room. During their search, police would also find drug paraphernalia as well as heroin residue, though not enough of it to charge Christopher with any drug-related crime. Christopher and Erica had been brought down to the police station and questioned on the night of May 7th. When police spoke with Erica, she said that after lunch that day, Christopher had brought Sophia and her sister Alexa upstairs for a nap. Christopher would then go back downstairs. However, he would go upstairs 2 other times because he said he heard noises. The second time he went up, he called for Erica, saying that something was wrong with Sophia. She ran upstairs and she saw Sophia lying on the floor with just one eye open. They had put Sophia in the bathtub with cold water in an attempt to revive her. Erica also called 911 at this point, and the pair attempted to perform CPR on Sophia. When a detective asked Erica about the bruising that was found near Sophia's buttocks, Erica told him that it was when she had tripped down some stairs earlier in the day and fallen on some play blocks. She hadn't been home. It was Christopher who was watching her at the time. Erica had actually gone to Save Mart around 8:30 in the morning to get some quarters, she told police. When it was his turn to be questioned, Christopher would tell police that he and Erica were down in the living room when suddenly they heard a thump from upstairs. After they both ran up to Sophia's room, Christopher said that they found her laying on the floor in her panties and a t-shirt, wrapped up in her blanket, covered in vomit. He said she was not breathing and also appeared bloated, so he had pushed on her stomach a few times and some vomit had come out. Christopher told police officers that he had then picked up Sophia and put her in a bathtub of cold water, trying to revive her. After that, he put her clothes back on her, wrapped her up in a towel, and brought her downstairs to where she was laying in the living room. He couldn't really provide a good explanation as to where the bruising on Sophia's body had come from, other than maybe she fell out of bed and landed on some of the toys that were lying around.
Well, Ken, we met Chris Cheery at a park in Tulare County. He fears for his safety and doesn't want anyone to know where he's staying. He wanted to tell his side of the story. What happened the day Sophia Acosta was found critically injured.
We were just downstairs smoking heroin, we had smoked some pot, and that's about it. Like, that's all we were really doing. Like, and the girls were upstairs in the bedroom sleeping. I had found her on the ground next to the bed, and she had vomit, and she was knocked out with her eyes, like she was unconscious, but with her eyes open.
Chris says he washed Sophia off in the tub while the child's mother ran for help. Chris says there was a miniature metal shopping cart next to Sophia's bed. He believes Sophia hit her head on the cart.
That was exactly right at the head of her bed on the floor where her head was. And she was still wrapped in the blanket and everything, so it seemed like she had rolled off or had either, like, you know what I mean, like fell somehow.
Did you kill Sophia?
No.
Did you beat her?
I never laid hands on Sophia to harm her.
Did you molest Sophia?
No. I would never, ever touch Sophia. I loved her more than anything.
And to those who believe he killed Sophia?
I would honestly give my life for that little girl to be alive. Like, I would gladly switch Sophia positions, like, in a heartbeat.
Just shy of a month later, on June 2nd, a warrant for Christopher's arrest was issued, and a day later, he was arrested in Turlock. Christopher was charged with 1 count of murder with special circumstances of torture, sodomy, and lewd and lascivious acts. He was also charged with assault of a child causing death, sodomy, and forcible lewd acts on a child. The murder charge made him eligible for the death penalty. Little Sophia's babysitter said that she had noticed signs of abuse on Sophia months prior to her death. The sitter said that she had seen Christopher spank Sophia really hard, and when she had gone to Erica to say something about it, Erica just didn't listen. Another sitter had seen her with black eyes, and Sophia had told her that her butt hurt on a number of occasions. In addition, she would always be scared and tell the babysitter, "Don't tell my daddy." Sophia referred to Christopher as her daddy at that point. This sitter had also spoken to Erica about the things that she had noticed, but she also was ignored by Erica. Because if you ignore it, then it's just not going to happen anymore, right? Christopher and Erica on a number of occasions tried to blame this babysitter for some of the injuries that little Alexa had, including when she had broken her leg and when there was blood in her diaper one time. Christopher Cherry's trial would not take place for over 5 years after Sophia's murder, on September 26, 2016. The district attorney began with a photograph of Sophia, describing her as lively and always happy. They then spoke about how Sophia had suffered blunt force trauma, causing her to bleed excessively in several parts of her body, as they showed jurors graphic photos of the child's bruises. The prosecution's argument was that Christopher had sexually assaulted and then beaten Sophia. The defense, on the other hand, was saying that while it's a tragedy when any child dies, in this case, there was no rape, no murder, and no torture. They called Sophia's case a medical mystery because there was no ligature marks where someone would have held her down, bite marks to fight back, or any evidence of torture. Christopher's defense team argued that if she had been raped, there would have been more blood found in the apartment, and her injuries would have been more severe. They claimed that some of the blood that police had later found was due to a rare blood clotting disease that Sophia had. They are really stretching on that one. They also made the claims that constipation, as well as the paramedics' resuscitation efforts, had something to do with a few of her injuries. Now, the reason the defense was saying that Sophia could have been injured due to the paramedics' resuscitation efforts was because when she was in the ambulance, a paramedic had tried to intubate the toddler, but after 2 failed attempts, doctors would take over. The doctors, however, would also have a difficult time intubating Sophia as she had a blockage in her lungs. But the prosecution claimed that this would not have caused the injuries that Sophia had suffered. In response to the defense's blood argument, the prosecution presented evidence that there was blood found on Sophia's mattress, and they said that Christopher could have washed off any other evidence while in the shower. The detective who had searched the apartment the night of Sophia's murder had not found any fresh blood. He did say, however, that there was the possibility that a small amount of blood had dried by the time that he had gotten there. A Tulare County firefighter and part-time EMT testified that he remembered seeing the little girl's body lying on the floor while paramedics tried to find a pulse. He had actually been the first one in the ambulance to notice a small puddle of blood underneath Sophia. Medical experts had then found lacerations as well as bleeding around Sophia's rectum. The firefighter who testified said he never forgot the scene. His daughter was around the same age at the time. He said out of his 16 years as a firefighter, he usually doesn't take things home, but this one had really stuck with him. More than 10 medical experts testified that Sophia's death was caused by extreme force. One of them saying, "There's no way on God's green earth that these injuries could have been caused by a blood clotting disorder." Thank you. Dr. Philip Hayden, who had examined Sophia the day that she had been brought into the hospital in May of 2011, described in graphic detail the extent of Sophia's injuries. Sophia had several bruises noted on her scalp. She had several external signs of trauma on her back and buttocks, abdominal injuries, and a contusion to her diaphragm. While the doctor agreed that Christopher had sexually assaulted Sophia and then beaten her to the point of unconsciousness, he said that on the night she was brought to the hospital, her mother, Erica, told a different story. She had told him that Sophia had fallen downstairs 2 days prior, and then that day, she had fallen into a metal toy shopping cart. Neither of these would have anything to do with those injuries, the doctor testified. Christopher's DNA was also found on a bed skirt in Sophia's room, but the defense said this was not unusual, as that had once been Christopher's room. The defense also brought up the fact that none of Christopher's DNA had been found on Sophia's body, and none of hers had been found on his body. However, washing would have been able to get rid of this very important DNA evidence, and Sophia had been soaking wet when first responders had gotten there. Erica then took the stand during Christopher's trial. She said that her ex-boyfriend Christopher was a typical addict who was teeming with anger, violence, and abuse when he needed a fix. She said that he had previously choked her out, pushed her up against a wall, threw picture frames at her, and made death threats when she had asked him to leave a few times. The first thing that Erica remembered about May 7th, 2011 was that Christopher and her had gotten into an argument, though she said she didn't remember what it was about or if it had gotten physical. Though I feel like if it had gotten physical, that's something you'd remember. So my guess is she's hiding something there. Erica said this argument only ended when she left the apartment to go get some heroin, because when Christopher was coming down, he was a much different person, and she figured that the drugs would make things better. In order to obtain these drugs, Erica took 2 buses to Visalia. There, she purchased $20 to $30 worth of heroin. When she returned back home to her apartment in Exeter after that, Erica said she went upstairs to check on her 2 girls who were sleeping in a twin bed in their room. She said that she could not remember if Christopher ever went upstairs to check on the girls, but she remembered watching a movie with him. Erica would then testify that she heard a thud come from the girls' room upstairs, but she thought that Sophia had just fallen off of her bed. When she went to investigate, Erica had found Sophia lying on the floor naked, though later she would say that she had panties on. Right away, Erica noticed that her daughter was covered in vomit, and she said she went to call 911. After the phone call, she went back upstairs and found Christopher washing Sophia off in the bathtub. Erica then wrapped her daughter up in a towel and brought her downstairs into the living room. From there, she went over to a neighbor's house to ask her for a ride to the hospital. Erica would admit that she had lied to police about certain things during her first interview because she was afraid of having her children taken away or going to jail for drug use. She was then asked if she had trusted Christopher with her children. She said that she did trust him. She had seen nothing to prove otherwise. During her testimony, the district attorney asked Erica about the time that Sophia's younger sister had broken her leg. This was in March 2011 when she was just an infant. Erica said that Christopher had told her at the time that they had been at the playground and the baby had twisted her leg while on the slide. But the doctors at the hospital who examined baby Alexa said that the injury had likely been caused by a fall. When Erica confronted Christopher about this, he then changed his story and said that she had actually been dropped at a birthday party. I don't know why Erica would even believe that at that point. Also testifying was the maintenance man at the apartment complex Sophia had lived in. He had gone into the apartment after police had left to further clean things up. He had found a condom wrapper as well as what he believed to be a sexual device in the children's bedroom. A neighbor at the apartment complex spoke about the changes that she had seen around the time that Christopher had moved in with Erica and the girls. She suspected drug use was going on in the apartment. There was also many complaints from her neighbors about the couple, and she stopped seeing Sophia, Alexa, and their mother altogether. A woman named Karen Bibby testified about a conversation she had previously had with Erica. Erica had told her that Christopher was hitting her, and that one day he had actually pushed her up against a wall while holding her by the throat. When Karen asked her why he had done this, Erica said it was because the kids were not calling him daddy. Because they have a dad, and because you're a dick? I don't know. During closing statements, Christopher's defense team asked the jury to stick to the facts and not speculate on what they thought had happened. But the prosecution said that the facts clearly showed that Christopher had murdered Sophia Acosta. After weeks of listening to testimony, on November 14th, a jury found Christopher guilty. After the conviction, the jury was given testimonial to determine what their recommendation to the judge would be in regards to the death penalty. Christopher's defense's argument was that he should not get the death penalty because he had never been given the chance at a normal life. The slow and steady decline of his parents' relationship, as well as his father's drug use when he was an adolescent, was devastating to him. Yeah, but a lot of people have problems like that, and they don't go around murdering children, so... By the age of 15, Christopher was already addicted to heroin, and he was left to live alone with his brother in an apartment. Yet, during his 2,000 days of incarceration over the last 5.5 years, the defense said that Christopher behaved well because it was the first time in his life that he had a supervised and structured environment. The prosecution argued with that statement, saying that Christopher was indeed not a model citizen while in jail. Far from. He had actually thrown feces at another inmate, been caught with a 2-inch needle in his cell, and had 300 days added to his sentence for his inability to follow rules. The most damning piece of evidence was presented during the sentencing. It was a jail call from Christopher's father, Charles Cherry. Charles told his son to not smile in court even if the jury wasn't there, because Sophia's family was still there. Christopher's response was fuck 'em. He has no sympathy and no respect for Sophia's family whatsoever. The jury made its decision and recommended the death sentence for Christopher Cherry, and the judge agreed. He is now being held on death row at San Quentin Prison in California. A woman by the name of Jacqueline Perez, who used to be Erica's friend, was in the courtroom during the trial. She said she was no longer friends with Erica, and she felt that she needed to be held responsible for Sophia's death as well. And I agree. Christopher's father, who was also in the courtroom, said afterwards, "They won this part of the battle, but the war isn't over. I know my son is innocent, and we're going to keep fighting until he gets a fair trial." Okay, good luck. Not. After a custody battle with Erica, Obi Acosta was finally granted full custody of his daughter Alexa. Due to how Sophia had died, Obi had to undergo anger management classes and domestic violence classes in order to be eligible to gain custody of his daughter again. On May 14, 2011, more than 60 people gathered in song and prayer at Memorial Park in Livingston, California for a candlelight vigil. Many wore t-shirts with Sophia's picture on them. Her father, Obi Acosta, said about his little girl, "Sophia was a happy kid. She always brought smiles to people's faces. Everyone was happy around her." He then spoke about how when he was at the hospital with Sophia, all he wanted to do was pick her up and hold her. But he couldn't. They allowed him to hold her hand, and that was about it. There was also a memorial set up with flowers and candles at Triangle Park for Sophia. On May 24, 2011, dozens of mourners gathered at Ivers and Alcorn Funeral Home to say goodbye to Sophia Acosta. During the ceremony, songs were sung and family members released white doves. Sophia was then buried at the Winton Cemetery. Well, thank you for listening to all of Sophia's story today. This little girl was so viciously attacked by yet another boyfriend. And while I'm glad that Christopher got the maximum penalty for what he did to Sophia, I don't think it's fair that her mother didn't get punished at all. At least she was not able to get custody of Sophia's little sister, Alexa, because she is clearly not a fit mother for letting that man be around her children alone in the first place.
Walking. Are y'all shopping?
Yeah.
Go Peanut. Go Peanut.
No peanut. No peanut.
Yay. Oh,
Police believe this woman, 32-year-old Tiffany Lucas, shot and killed her 2 sons. She's charged with 2 counts of murder.
Jaden Terrell Howard was born on March 13, 2014. He was a student at Freedom Elementary in Bullock County, Kentucky. His brother, who was younger by 3 years, was named Maurice Baker Jr., and he was said to be goofy, sweet, and smart, and was also nicknamed Peanut as well as Reese. Both Jaden and Maurice were said to be sweet little boys who were always happy and very polite. They loved playing video games together, playing soccer, and riding their bikes. The boys had 2 different fathers. Jaden's had passed away in 2019, and Maurice's was not involved in his life. Though not by choice, as it said Maurice's father was kept from seeing him by his mother. Her name was Tiffany Lucas, and therefore she was the boy's sole caregiver. The 3 lived together in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. And Tiffany always made it seem like she was a great mother to the boys, especially on her social media accounts, where she would post many heavily edited photos of herself along with Jaden and Maurice. On Valentine's Day of 2022, she made a post with a photo of her and the boys, along with the words, "I love my babies every day of the year. I will always use any excuse to celebrate them and show them how special they are." In another post, the mother proclaimed, "I love my kings different, and that's why Jaden and Peanut are different types of children. They are God sent, and every wrong I have ever done or any hurt I have ever caused, I am so focused on correcting and loving them longer and deeper." She continued, "I cannot guarantee a lot of things in life, but I can guarantee the mother I will always be, the love I will always share, and the best I can ever give and do will be promised to you, my love, Jaden and Peanut."
Boys! Peanut! What?
On Mother's Day of 2023, she made a post with a picture of her, Maurice, and Jaden that said, "Every day is Mother's Day in my world. I can only thank God for blessing me with the utmost respectful, compassionate, strong, silly, emotional, overprotective, obsessive, loving young kings that call me Mommy, Mom, and Mama. I don't think I would know how to smile, love, or survive if it wasn't for them. Even bad days, they shower me with an abundance of love. Always together, never apart. 3 souls, 1 heart." According to those who knew Tiffany, though, all these social media posts that she made were nothing more than an act designed to fool others into thinking that she was normal. Tiffany was said to have a hard time holding down a job, rarely worked, had very erratic behavior, and had drug problems that few knew about. These drug problems had led to Maurice and Jaden being taken away when they were younger. And Tiffany had once even served a month in jail for possession. According to Maurice's father, Tiffany had also been involved in prostituting herself at one point. Due to this, the boys' families were said to have reached out to child services on multiple occasions, but to no avail. As I had said, Tiffany tried to keep Maurice away from his father's side of the family, which included his younger brother as well. According to Maurice Sr.'s girlfriend, who also acted as a stepmother for Maurice Jr., Tiffany was extremely selfish and did not want him to have a relationship with his father or his other younger brother. If anyone from Maurice's father's side of the family showed up at Tiffany's house to see the boys, she either wouldn't answer the door or she would go to the door and have some sort of excuse as to why the boys could not leave. Then, on the afternoon of November 8th, 2023, Tiffany's neighbor pulled into their driveway, and he saw the 32-year-old mother walking down his front steps before suddenly collapsing. He ran over to her, and she told him that her kids were dying.
My neighbor just came up to my door and just passed out, and I can't get her to wake up. She's
okay. Is she breathing?
She is.
How old is she?
I would say in her early 30s. And now she's screaming that the kids are dying. Stay here.
The neighbor then left Tiffany's side and ran into her house, where he discovered the bodies of both Maurice and Jaden. They were lying on the floor of a bedroom, covered in blood, and a gun lay on the bed near them.
Do we know what happened to him?
I have no idea. We just found our neighbor, the woman, their mom, just freaking out in my yard.
Okay, and how old is he?
Oh my God, he's I don't know. He's probably 6. There's blood on the bed. There's a gun. Oh my God.
Was he shot?
I don't see a gunshot wound. Okay, there's 2 of them. They're both here. They're breathing.
Okay. There's 2 children?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is she able to tell you what's going on or what happened?
No. Do you know what happened? No. She is shaking. She's on something, freaking out. I don't know. She's just laying here now on her stomach.
Officers responded to the home in the 200 block of Bentwood Drive around 11 a.m. after the neighbor had placed a 911 call.
conscious? Is she conscious?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Ma'am, what's your name? Huh?
Tiffany.
I can't hear you.
Tiffany.
Tiffany?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tiffany, I'm going to change these handcuffs out, okay? And then I'm going to roll you over and I'm going to sit you up, all right? Make it move everything. You got your handcuffs on. Now I'm going to pick your hands up so you can take these off. Do not struggle, do you understand me? Okay, now, I want you to listen to me. I'm going to take this arm. You're going to roll this direction, okay? You're going to sit up at the same time. You understand? 1, 2, 3. Take this leg, fold it in, make that foot touch your knee. Roll to the side, on the ground. Now, we're going to roll again this way, and I'm going to assist you up on your feet, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Have you taken anything? Have you been drinking? Then why can't you stand up? You just don't feel like it, huh?
I said I don't feel right.
Don't feel right? Okay. I guess we'll put her in my car, and when EMS gets done in there, they can come over and check her out.
Both boys, who were alive but barely hanging on, were immediately transported by ambulance to Norton's Children's Hospital, where they underwent emergency life-saving surgeries. But sadly, around 2:50 p.m., both children had died from their injuries. Less than an hour later, their mother, Tiffany Lucas, was booked into the Bullitt County Detention Center and charged with their murders. Prior to being brought in, Tiffany had told police that she wasn't feeling well, so EMS had checked her out. And she would inform them that she had not consumed any alcohol or drugs that day. She would additionally say that she had shot herself in the ear, but that would prove to be untrue.
You Miranda with you?
No, Rick said not to.
Yeah, I caught a bracelet on her ankle.
Unit on front 96.
The handcuffs back. But as I was coming up and going around her, it was going off again when she said she shot herself in the ear.
Okay.
If I just stayed up by her ear, I'm not seeing nothing. That's supposedly the one she said.
Though. He did, didn't he? He said, you got earrings in, didn't he?
Okay.
It's on
Calm
camera.
down. It's okay.
That don't have nothing to do with it.
It means everything. You're up. You're sick.
Police had found Ring camera footage from a nearby house on the day of the shooting. In the video, 4 shots rang out before Tiffany was seen walking out of her house calling for help. The mother would tell detectives that she had left the gun in the bedroom and that it had been given to her by someone else. She admitted she'd been the only one inside the home that day besides the boys. When police asked Tiffany why she had murdered her 2 young children, her answer was very bizarre, and she said,
I love my children. I love my boys so much. I wouldn't have hurt them, but I just feel like I felt back and I was letting them play the video games and I wasn't like focusing how I was supposed to, you know, and they get that video game and the YouTube and the kids, it just messes their minds up to where people can manipulate their parents or do whatever they want. And I feel like someone put something upon my house or me or something. Like, I just don't feel right. I'm not, like, I don't do this. I love my kids.
The mother insisted that she was having an out-of-body experience and that she would not have killed her 2 young children if she wasn't being manipulated. She then went on to tell authorities that she was being manipulated by things like Facebook, the internet, and wireless connections to kill her children. Tiffany claimed that she had a sugar daddy who had actually been manipulating her mind for 3 years at that point. According to her, he'd been doing all this through her phone. And the man had also been putting stuff up in her home. Real evil, dark, weird stuff. And while this man had never actually told her to kill her kids, he had provided Tiffany with the gun that she had used. The boys' mother, the one who had just brutally ended their lives, would additionally tell police throughout her interview that she was a good woman and a really good mom. The entire time she was being interviewed by detectives, Tiffany did not seem to show very much remorse for what she had done. She would even at points focus on bizarre things like the officer's finger movements and his cell phone making noises as he received incoming notifications.
See, as soon as you walked in. Why is it doing that?
My phone.
As soon as you walk in the door? That's weird, right?
It's weird.
It's weird. As soon as people walk, sounds, that's not right.
No. Let me shut this.
See?
Let me shut this.
It's not right. See?
Not for right now.
Okay.
Every time I say something, your phone's going off.
Believe me, I wish it wasn't going off.
Tiffany also made the odd claim that her name had been written everywhere in the back of the police cruiser.
What's your last name?
Lucas.
Lucas?
You know my name.
I've got it in there, but I swear to God, it's in there, and I didn't
It
feel
was
like
written on everything in the back of the police cars. I've seen it.
I'm telling you.
I've seen it.
I don't
No,
I can go in the other room and get it.
In the back of the police cars, there's white things with Lucas written on them. I've seen it.
Really?
Yes.
I have not seen that. I have not seen that.
It was only after the deputy left the room that the 32-year-old admitted to firing 4 shots in 30 seconds, but insisted that the shooting was just accidental. I'm not sure how you would shoot 4 shots in a row accidentally. Tiffany would end up being charged with capital murder, and she was held on a $2 million bond. At first, she and her defense team were going to argue at trial that she was not legally sane at the time she had killed Jaden and Maurice. But in October of 2024, Tiffany changed her mind and instead decided to plead guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. In court, a video was played of Tiffany taking her 2 young sons to a Waffle House just the day before she brutally murdered them. While there, her unstable mind frame was very evident, and the Waffle House staff recalled that the mother was in her own world. They said she seemed to have a hard time comprehending what was going on and wouldn't answer questions that they were asking her. She also kept looking behind her back as if someone was following her, didn't eat the entire time she was there, and in general, just did not seem like she was okay. Tiffany was also shown on video footage a few days before the shooting asking one of her neighbors for help.
I need you. I need you. Yeah, I need you. God is possible. I need to your mother. I need to have a computer. I need family. I need sufficient. I need to know where I keep there.
According to the mother's attorney, she was having powerful delusions around the time that she had killed her 2 sons. And she had also turned the gun on herself, but it jammed. They said that Tiffany was under the belief that she and her children were being stalked by an unknown, powerful group of people who she was afraid would abduct and torture the boys. According to them, her psychotic episode had been brought on by opioid withdrawal because she had been trying to get clean, and this was a side effect. During her sentencing, a judge would say to Tiffany, "A mother is more than the giving of life. It's providing food, clothing, and shelter, but more importantly, love and security. I cannot imagine the sheer horror these children must have experienced seeing their mother with a gun." Shortly after making these remarks, the judge would sentence Tiffany Lucas to 2 consecutive life sentences behind bars. She will be eligible for parole in 20 years. However, the prosecutor said that they believe it's highly unlikely she will be granted parole at that point. In the courtroom, 6 family members of the boys read victim impact statements, telling the judge how the murders of the 2 children had impacted their lives. Many of them using the words monster and selfish when referring to Tiffany. Jaden's grandmother, Regina Rowling, was one person who spoke, and this is what she said.
You know, Jaden was the only thing we had left, and you took him from us. You know, I had already lost his dad. And then my other son. And then you took Jaden. You have ripped our lives apart. And you know that you could have gave them kids to us, and we would have took care of them. But you have been selfish. My heart is in pieces. And you know that you have always had a place to drop them off. You took him from me, and I hurt every day. Every second of the day, I hurt. And I hope they give you 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. I want you to suffer just like I'm suffering right now. They did not deserve that. You took my little man from me. And we all love him so much, Jaden and Maurice.
Bobby Baker, Maurice Jr.'s aunt, pledged to haunt Tiffany at any potential parole hearing should she become eligible. She said, "I often see these court shows where the defendant is forgiven by the victim's family. But not today. Not by me. I will never forgive you. Bitch, I'll be there for every parole hearing. Do you hear me? I'll be there for every parole hearing." Both Maurice Jr. and Jaden were remembered at an emotional vigil that was held on the night of November 12, 2023. Hundreds of people, including family members and dozens of first responders, attended the vigil that was held at Little Flock Baptist Church on Preston Highway in Shepherdsville. There were candles and a line of balloons at the vigil, all intended to help the community heal from the tragedy as well as remember the precious little boys. A memorial also grew on the front lawn of where they had once lived. People dropped off balloons, candles, flowers, and teddy bears, while others stopped by to say a prayer for their families.
Because I knew I wasn't the only one feeling the pain for their families.
A stuffed bear and tiger placed by Kimberly Smith, the mother of 4 who lives just down the road, shows the community's care and mourning at the scene of Wednesday's terrible crime.
I had to let them know, whether in spirit or not, that, you know, and their family know that we're praying for them and hope that, you know, they get through this. It's going to be a long, hard road, but we're praying for them.
Well, thank you for listening to Maurice and Jaden's story today. It's so sad that Tiffany acted like such a loving and caring mom online, constantly posting photos of her with Maurice and Jaden. And then one day, she just turned against those sweet and innocent boys and ended their lives. It makes me really wonder what was going on behind the scenes when Tiffany wasn't posting to social media. What do you think about this case? Did Tiffany just snap one day, or was she really never the mother that she made herself out to be? Her daughter had been just fine. She was happy and smiling only hours ago. But now, her skin had a grayish tinge, and she was struggling to breathe. What was happening to her little girl? All she had done was eat some breakfast. Bernice Natanda Wamala was born on February 28, 2018, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Her mother is named Maureen Mrembi, and her father's name is Tony Wamala. Both of them are originally from Uganda. Little Bernice was full of life, had lots of love to give, and she also had a great laugh. She was lovingly nicknamed Princess Nannies. The little girl loved music and ballet. In fact, she was actually obsessed with dancing. She would dance to every song she heard. On March 6, 2021, Maureen would drop off 3-year-old Bernice at her friend Zara Issa's apartment. Maureen needed a babysitter that day, and Bernice and Zara's daughter were very good friends. So the two agreed to let the little girls have a sleepover that night. Now Zara and her daughter Samara actually lived in the same apartment complex as Bernice and her mother did. It was a high-rise on Birchmount Road in Toronto. The girls had fun playing together that night. And then the next morning, Bernice and Samara woke up, still full of energy, and the little girls decided to have some breakfast. The two preschoolers decided that they wanted some Golden Morn cereal that Zara kept in her pantry. But right after breakfast, Bernice fell violently ill. She was vomiting over and over again, and the little girl had become very weak. Zara called Maureen, who frantically came rushing over to the apartment. When she got there, only seconds later, Bernice was lying in a chair, and she was barely breathing. Maureen looked in her daughter's mouth, and she noticed that it had a gray tinge to it. She also squeezed her middle finger to see if there was any blood flow, but saw nothing. Terrified, Maureen dialed 911 to get an ambulance to the apartment. But after 25 minutes had passed and the first responders had still not shown up, Zara would get in the car and drive them to the hospital as fast as she could. When they arrived at Michael Garron Hospital, the doctors placed Bernice on oxygen and they ran numerous tests on her, but they could not find out what was making the little girl sick. And her condition was only getting worse. Much of Bernice's body had started to turn gray from lack of oxygen. Shortly after, Bernice would suffer 2 heart attacks, and after multiple resuscitation attempts, doctors were still unable to save the little girl. And unfortunately, at 2:16 p.m., Bernice would pass away. It was only a week after her 3rd birthday. And not too long after Bernice had been taken to the hospital, her friend Samara had actually gotten ill with the exact same symptoms. She too was taken to a different emergency room. Luckily, she would recover within 4 days. But Bernice's cause of death was still unknown, leaving her mother without any answers. It wouldn't be until 2 weeks after Bernice had died that Maureen would receive a phone call from the Toronto police telling her that her daughter had died from deprivation of oxygen to her body's cells due to a highly toxic chemical, sodium nitrate. And since both girls had fallen ill immediately after eating breakfast, police believed that somebody had tampered with the cereal. So the investigators would immediately turn their focus to the cereal, which was Golden Morn, an African cereal made of corn and soya by Nestle Central in West Africa. And with help from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, samples of the cereal were analyzed, and it was soon ruled that there were not any widespread concerns with the cereal product. This had been a targeted attack. On June 19, 2021, police in the Ontario Coroner's Department would finally make an arrest. They arrested 45-year-old Frances Ngugi. It was determined that the cereal that the girls ate had been purposely contaminated, and that Frances had actually dated Samara's mother, Zara, previously, which meant that he had access to the apartment. Frances Ngugi was charged with 2 counts of administering a noxious substance to endanger life, 2 counts of unlawfully causing bodily harm, and criminal negligence causing death. Those charges would be upgraded to attempted murder and murder less than 2 weeks later. Frances was actually a refugee from Kenya who had arrived to Canada in 2018. His refugee status had been based on the fact that Frances had been persecuted for his sexuality. He was bisexual. Once in Canada, he had begun to work as a janitor at Griffith Foods. Then, in 2020, he would meet Zara Isa at an adult learning center. And not too long after, in September of 2020, Frances would start a relationship with the young mother. But the thing is, Zara was actually already married. Her husband and older daughter resided in their home country of Tanzania. Frances would fall in love with Zara quickly, and he also adored her daughter, Samara. He would often spend time at their apartment, bring them dinners, and he even helped Zara in buying things for Samara, like clothes and toys. He had fallen hard for Zara, and not too long after they had started dating, Frances would propose to her. But Zara would turn him down, because she was already married. But Frances would keep proposing to her throughout the next few months, and she would keep rejecting him. Frances always wanted to hang out with Zara. He never wanted to be on his own. And he became increasingly obsessive and jealous. He was also now fixated on Zara's marriage. He wanted to know everything about the man who he saw as competition. And Francis would obsessively check Zara's husband's social media pages. He also began secretly saving screenshots of Zara's husband's posts. Many were about his efforts to join his wife and daughter in Canada. He also had screenshots of family photos, and somehow he had pictures in his phone of Issa's citizenship documents and her marriage certificate. In October of 2020, Francis planted a hidden audio recorder in Zara's bedroom so that he could secretly capture her private conversations and interactions. Francis would go through great lengths for his obsession over Zara, even digging into her history as well as her husband's. And Francis had become convinced that Zara's husband was involved in criminal activity and was living in Tanzania under a false identity. Throughout late 2020 and early 2021, Francis would continue professing his love to Zara, as well as his desire for them to be a family. He also told Zara that he had read the Quran, and it said that divorce was acceptable, so he told her not to worry. Still, Zara continued to rebuff his advances, which caused Francis to become angry and even more obsessive, if that's even possible. In late January of 2021, Zara had finally had enough of all of Francis's clinginess as well as his marriage proposals over and over again. So she decided to end the relationship. She also knew that her oldest daughter and her husband would be joining them shortly in Canada. Now this would completely crush Francis. And despite his now boiling anger and jealousy, the two would still remain friends. At least in Zara's eyes. Why would she even want to be friends with this man? I'm assuming she found the tape recorder in her bedroom at this point, so no thanks. On February 1st, 2021, Francis got a promotion at his job at Griffith Foods. Later that month, he had been asked to clean up 2 broken bags of sodium nitrate that had ripped during transport. Francis was told to wear protective clothing and was advised by his boss that if he ingested any or even let it absorb into his skin, even less than a teaspoon, he would be dead in about an hour. As part of its food processing, Griffith Foods cures meat and uses 99% pure food grade sodium nitrate in this process in very, very small amounts. Now this does come in several forms, but the kind that the food company used was colorless and odorless. And overexposure to sodium nitrate can lead to a condition called hemoglobinemia, in which the body is deprived of oxygen. So Francis cleaned up the spilled sodium nitrate, and at the same time, started to think up a diabolical plan. And he would pocket a small amount of this highly toxic chemical. A few days after this, Francis would go into Zara's apartment and plant the sodium nitrate into the Golden Morn cereal, which she kept in a hand-labeled Similac baby food container in her pantry. Francis intended for Zara to eat the cereal and become very sick, or likely die. He knew how highly toxic that chemical was, but as it goes, if he couldn't have her, nobody could. On March 6th, Francis had actually been at Zara's apartment when Maureen had asked her to watch Bernice overnight. Yet, despite knowing that the 2 toddlers were going to be in the home, he did nothing to remove the contaminated cereal. Also, why is he over at her house again? She knows this guy is clearly cuckoo, but she still has him over? Come on. So apparently Francis had spent the night, and the next morning on March 7th, he had left for work at 5 a.m. And that's when Zara had unknowingly fed the 2 girls the cereal. Now, when Zara had gone to the hospital after Bernice had fallen ill, Francis had actually gone with her. But the entire time, he didn't say anything about the fact that he had placed the sodium nitrate in the cereal, and that's what was making the little girl sick. He could have saved her life, potentially, but he sat there and had said nothing. And after doing nothing to save her life, Francis would also continue his relentless pursuit of Zara. Yeah, even after that. He tried to kill her, but now he's like, oh, well, since she didn't die, you want to continue dating? He even contacted the Tanzanian embassy to report that Zara's husband was an immigrant living under a false identity in an attempt to make it more difficult for him to get into Canada. In addition, Francis also contacted Zara's husband over WhatsApp and told him that they were in love with the same woman. No one can ever love her the way I do, is what Francis said. But Zara's husband told him that he actually knew about the affair and he had cleared it up with his wife already. Then in May of 2021, 2 months after Bernice had died, but before Francis had been arrested, Zara would finally break things off with him for good. So a month later in June, when Francis had been arrested, he denied any knowledge of how the children had fallen ill, and he pretended to know nothing about the chemical itself, saying he didn't even know it was used at his company. But at the end of September 2023, Francis Ngugi would plead guilty to second-degree murder. This conviction carried an automatic life sentence with no chance of parole for 10 to 25 years. And the exact amount of time would be left up to the judge to determine. Prior to his sentencing, Francis would read what he had scribbled down on a piece of paper. He said to Bernice's family, "I realized that I not only took a life, but I took away all the birthday parties. I took away the memories of her first day of school, graduation, friendships, seeing her get married, and have children. I have robbed you of all this joy, and for that, I am truly sorry. Please find a place in your heart to forgive me. There are no words I can say to undo what I have done." He was trembling, and he was unable to continue as he broke down, and Bernice's family started wailing, prompting the judge to order a recess. The judge determined that Francis Ngugi would need to spend at least 17 years in prison before he would become eligible for parole. And when he's released from prison, he will be deported back to Kenya, where he's probably going to face persecution again for his sexuality.
In her victim impact statement, Mirembe demanded unconditional justice for her daughter, Bernice Wamala.
I remember last time when we came here when he said he pled guilty, he was like, "I'm sorry, Maureen." Sorry for what? I'm not going to say like, okay, you're forgiven because you were in the hospital that day, the day Bernice passed on, and also you knew what you did. It's like you put the poison for this baby and you didn't tell, and you were in the hospital. He's so evil, because at least he could tell, he could explain like to hospital, okay guys, I know what I did this about these kids, please try to do something to save the kids.
In her reasons for sentence, the judge told the court the offense was not one that occurred spontaneously, but was part of a course of conduct to punish Masisa. Mr. Ngugi relentlessly and callously pursued his objectives, even at the expense of Bernice's life.
Even if he's sorry, that sorry is not going to bring Bernice back.
On April 4th, 2021, Bernice Natanda Wamala was laid to rest back in her native country of Uganda. Her mother said that is where she would be at peace. Well, thank you for listening to all of Bernice's story today. Bernice was not the target of Francis's horrible crime, but he was still out to murder someone. And I'm sure he did nothing to save Bernice's life by telling the doctors what he had done, just to save himself. But he ended up getting himself into a whole lot more trouble into the end, and now he's gonna get deported back to the country that he fled from. Had he admitted what he had done right away, maybe little Bernice would still be alive today, but he's a coward.
Had a brain bleed and was unresponsive when she was taken to the hospital last Sunday, June 25th. They say she was on a court-ordered visitation at the time. According to the Allegheny County Medical Examiner's report, she died Thursday at UPMC Children's Hospital.
Iris Rita Alfaro was born on December 2nd, 2021 in Butler, Pennsylvania, to her mother, Emily Alfaro, and her father, Bailey Jacoby. Iris was said to be very happy and a bright baby. She loved watching the show Miss Rachel, and she learned a lot of sign language from watching it. Iris also loved snuggling with her pet cats and dogs, as well as watching the show Bluey and the movie Moana. Baby Iris and her mother were very close. Emily just adored her little girl, and the pair were often seen wearing matching outfits. Iris also lived with her mother Emily most of the time, along with Emily's parents too. Their names were Candace and Frank Alfera, or Gaga and Papa to Iris. Now, Bailey still had visitations with his daughter, and he would get to see her every Wednesday as well as every other weekend. She would go stay at his home during these times. This had started when Iris was only 13 months old. Back when Emily had met and started dating Iris's father towards the end of 2020, they had lived together in a house that was located on the 400 block of Electric Street in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Emily had moved out after her and Bailey split in early 2022, and when they did, Bailey would move in his new girlfriend, Alicia Owens, just a few months later. In the spring of 2023, after Iris returned from a visit at her father's home, she had to be brought to the UPMC Children's Hospital by her mother, Emily. This had come after Emily discovered that her daughter's poop contained 20 water beads, some of which had grown to the size of quarters, button-like batteries, and a screw. Following this incident, police told Iris's mother, Emily, that they believed this had been done to her daughter on purpose. So Emily immediately contacted Children and Youth Services and let them know of her and authorities' concerns. But the regular visits between Bailey and his daughter would not end up being limited. Emily was even told that if she did not continue to let her daughter go on visits with Bailey, then she would likely be held in contempt of court and could potentially lose custody of her daughter. Then, on June 25, 2023, Iris was again spending the weekend at her father Bailey's home, when Bailey had to go out to the store quickly, and he left his daughter in the care of his girlfriend, Alicia Owens. But while he was out, Alicia called the father and told him that something was wrong with his daughter. Bailey immediately rushed back home to his Newcastle, Delaware home, where he found Iris unresponsive, and he contacted 911. After contacting emergency services, Bailey also contacted Iris's mother, Emily, who would arrive at his home around the time that the first responders did. And upon her arrival, Emily saw Alicia standing at the back of the ambulance, crying. The mother was then told by Bailey that their daughter Iris had been vomiting before she suddenly had fallen unresponsive. Iris would be rushed to UPMC Jameson Hospital in Newcastle for treatment. But roughly an hour later, she would need to be airlifted to UPMC Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh. And regardless of the life-saving efforts made by doctors, Iris would end up dying 4 days later, on June 29, 2023, due to organ failure. When Iris had arrived at the hospital, the emergency physicians had told police that they strongly believed her condition had been caused by child abuse. So both Alicia and Iris's father were brought in for questioning. When police spoke with Alicia, who had been the one who was home with Iris at the time, she said that the little girl had hit her head after she had cramped up and fallen off of the bed. Now, at first, Alicia said that Iris did not hit her head, and Bailey had relayed this over to the 911 operator. But then Alicia could actually be heard during the call chiming in, saying that the toddler did indeed hit her head when she fell. Alicia told police during her interrogation that she'd sat Iris down on the bed to feed her. And during that time, Iris's arms and legs suddenly began to cramp up. The little girl then fell sideways off of the bed and her chest collapsed. Alicia said she immediately started CPR and contacted Bailey. But she hadn't contacted 911. The other thing is, the mattress that Alicia claimed that Iris had fallen off of was only 6 inches off a carpeted floor. Alicia also told authorities that neither she or her boyfriend Bailey ever let Iris out of their sight. They were very diligent with their care of her. She also went so far as to say that there was no chance she had gotten into anything because they always kept the bathroom cabinets locked. She would also end up being asked by authorities to provide her cell phone so they could inspect it, which she did. And during Bailey's questioning, he would tell authorities that he thought it was odd his girlfriend had not contacted 911 prior to him getting back home. He also said that in the 24 hours prior to Iris being brought to the hospital, she had vomited 2 or 3 times, but other than that, she had been normal. And even though Alicia's story didn't seem to make much sense, and police also had her phone in their possession, it wouldn't be until January of 2024 that an arrest was made. At that time, Alicia was finally placed under arrest, and she was charged with criminal homicide, aggravated assault of a child less than 6 years of age, endangering the welfare of a child, and aggravated assault of a child less than 13 years of age. Alicia is currently being held without bail and is possibly facing a life sentence. Iris's family was ecstatic that Alicia had finally been arrested after months and months of waiting. Prior to the announcement of Alicia's arrest, Iris's family posted yard signs, banners, and billboards throughout the county, trying to get justice for their baby girl. So it had been determined that the toddler had died of acetone poisoning, and her cause of death was homicide. Doctors told police that Iris had a subdural hematoma, bilateral retinal hemorrhages, acetone in her blood, and her body was in organ failure, all of which occurred at some point during the weekend while she was in the custody of her father and Alicia. The doctor also told police that any reasonable caretaker would have noticed almost immediate cognitive changes in Iris. And when authorities had searched through Alicia's phone, they had found numerous Google searches that she had done from February to June, which means that she had also looked up these terms prior to when Iris had come home with water beads, batteries, and a screw in her diaper. These searches had been in relation to chemicals poisonous to a baby. Alicia had looked up questions about children drinking acetone or nail polish. She had searched poisonous beauty products, water beads near me, poisonous products to babies and kids, what happens if a baby swallows a button battery, medications that poison children, medications you shouldn't give to babies, and more. This evil woman had also searched how to pass a polygraph test. Then she had deleted all the searches from her phone's history. Luckily, investigators had been able to extract them. The medical examiner and forensic pathologist also said that both Iris's blood and urine were acidic. The level of acetone that was found in her blood was 0.32%. A lethal level for an adult is just 0.04 to 0.05%. So for a child, being 18 months old, it's even less than that. She had a huge amount of acetone in her system. The forensic pathologist had also determined that the acetone had been ingested orally, and it would have almost immediately caused vomiting, nausea, dizziness, and lethargy. And if enough was given, it would cause a child to go right into a coma. Now, the police did not arrest Bailey Jacoby in connection to his daughter's death, as there was no evidence linking him to it whatsoever, and he had been questioned by authorities multiple times, and each time had been very cooperative. However, when police did speak with Bailey, they learned a possible motive for Iris's murder. Apparently, the day that he had left his daughter home alone with Alicia, he had had a fight with Alicia earlier. And then Alicia had told him that she wasn't getting enough attention from him. Iris's grandmother also believes that Alicia was jealous of the good co-parenting relationship that Emily and Bailey had, which is petty as fuck.
So all we're doing is putting one foot in front of the other.
It's just horrible. This is something that shouldn't happen to anybody. That beautiful baby.
Candace and Frank Alfera hold back tears as they remember the day their daughter Emily called them to say their 18-month-old granddaughter Iris, who lived with them, was unresponsive while in her father's care.
She changed our lives, made us the happiest two people in the world. I used to tell Emily, oh, I thought I loved you. I said, I'm sorry, but Iris is this much more, and she'd get mad.
As far as I'm concerned, Child Youth Services dropped the ball.
Now that an arrest has been made, the Alferas say they're going to let the justice system take over, while they focus their attention on keeping baby Iris's memory alive, while making certain this doesn't ever happen again.
We want to change the law to prevent this from happening. At least change it to the point where they have to have supervised visitation if something is wrong.
Emily promised. Emily's making it her life goal to make sure the laws are changed and that Iris's memory's on forever.
Following Iris's death, her great-aunt, Crystal Joseph, publicly said, "There is no justice. The only justice there can ever be in this world is to save another child, because we couldn't save Iris." She also said that the news of Alicia Owen's arrest did not bring any closure to the family, because they will forever be paralyzed with grief. She continued on saying, "We miss our precious Iris with our entire beings and souls." On Sunday, July 2nd, 2023, a candlelight vigil was held for Iris Alfera at Riverwalk Park in Newcastle. During the vigil, her mother Emily read a statement in which she referred to her daughter as her beautiful angel baby, and said she never thought she would be saying goodbye to the biggest light of her life. Emily also said, "You're one of the smartest little girls that I ever met, and intelligent beyond compare. I just pray that you're watching over me as I dedicate my life to you. I love you forever and always." And a private memorial service was also held for her at the Ed and Dawn DeCarbo Funeral Home in Newcastle. And immediately following, baby Iris was cremated. Well, thank you for listening to Iris's story today. It is just insane that a full-grown woman can feel so jealous of a baby that she feels the need to end that baby's life. Clearly, she had some serious insecurities in her relationship with Bailey, probably because she was trying to hide the psychopath that she really was. Little Iris was so loved by her mother as well as many others, and it's completely unfair that she had to lose her life in such a horrible manner at the hands of such a selfish person.
Her entire life revolved around those kids. I don't know what broke. I don't know what changed. I wish I could say that she relapsed. I don't even know that.
Elijah Vu was born on August 20th, 2020, to his mother, Katrina Bauer, and his father, Jimmy Vu. He also had an older sister who was born in May of 2017, and she was on the autism spectrum. Elijah loved trucks, dinosaurs, and his favorite color was blue. He also really enjoyed going to the beach. He was said to be a very sweet and loving child. Now, Elijah's mother, Katrina, had a history of mental illness, criminal records in multiple states, and a history of erratic behavior. She had also suffered from a traumatic brain injury. Her family would say that her story would change depending on who her audience was. Elijah's mother and father had split up when he was only 6 months old in February of 2021. This had come after his father, Jimmy, had been arrested on a slew of charges. He had then later been convicted on these charges, which included physically harming a child, possession of a firearm as a convicted felon, battery, disorderly conduct, possession of THC with intent to distribute, and possession of methamphetamine. He's been serving time in prison at the Oshkosh Correctional Institute since the beginning of 2023. Throughout Elijah's parents' relationship, Jimmy was said to be abusive towards Katrina. She had even photographed and then posted to her social media a number of bruises that she had received at his hands. But after they split up, Katrina no longer had a place to live, so she ended up losing custody of both Elijah and his sister in April of 2021. She would end up getting that custody back exactly a year later in April of 2022. And during that time that they had been taken away from their mother, the two children had been placed into foster care. Then, in November of 2022, Katrina began hanging out with her ex-boyfriend, who was named Jesse Vang. Jesse Vang had a criminal history dating back to when he was only a teen. His convictions included child abuse, bail jumping, disorderly conduct, and even a federal drug trafficking charge that he had spent 3 years in prison for. Jesse had obtained his child abuse charge back in 2002, and it had come after he had beat up a fellow juvenile inmate who was 5 years younger than him. Jesse was 17 at the time, and the other inmate was 12. Katrina and Jesse also had a troubling history together. Back in 2015, police had responded to an Americ Inn in Appleton, where Katrina had hidden herself inside a bathroom, then attracted the attention of staff, who had called police. When authorities arrived, Elijah's mother told them that she was being essayed by 2 Asian males, one of them being Jesse. She also reported that the men had told her that she was their property, and detailed how she would be transported to a house near Minneapolis, where she would sell herself for drugs and money. 2 months after the assault, Katrina would ask police to not investigate it, saying that she was now with Jimmy Vu, and Jimmy would take care of it. Because according to her, Jimmy was an alpha, and Jesse was under him in some sort of structure. Prosecutors, however, still ended up charging Jesse in the motel incident. He was charged with conspiracy to commit human trafficking and second-degree assault. But the state would eventually dismiss the charges against him because he had actually been indicted in federal court and detained in Minnesota for charges of conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. So why Katrina started seeing him again, I have no idea. And you'll be even more shocked and confused when you hear what she also asked him to do later on, especially knowing this history. Recently, Katrina had been having a hard time dealing with both Elijah and his sister. Since his sister was on the autism spectrum, she would often have violent outbursts as well as meltdowns. This was becoming both emotionally and physically draining for Katrina. And she herself would even admit that it had gotten to the point where all she did was yell at her daughter. A neighbor of Katrina's would also confirm that this was true. All she ever did was yell. However, it was at both children that she would constantly yell at. This neighbor had lived beneath Katrina and her 2 children in an apartment in Wisconsin Dells, and said she had to call the cops a number of times because of how loudly she could hear Katrina screaming at her children. She also said that she knows a number of other tenants had called police as well, because not only had they heard her screaming at the kids, but they had also seen her yanking them around by their arms. And every time police went over to the home to check on things, Elijah and his sister would only get screamed at even more once they left. Oftentimes, neighbors would see the children in their bedroom banging on the window, waving and wanting to just say hi because they were so lonely and isolated. So Katrina was clearly far from being a good mother. But then, in February of 2024, she did something completely stupid and absolutely illogical. Katrina called up her boyfriend Jesse and asked him to take her son Elijah for a few days to teach him how to be a man. He's 3 years old. Just 3. But according to Katrina, the toddler had been exhibiting bad behaviors, and she was hoping that Jesse could help turn those around. So on February 12, 2024, Katrina dropped off her son Elijah with convicted felon and known human trafficker, Jesse Vang. Jesse lived in an apartment on the 3900 block of Mishkot Road in Two Rivers. The mother told Jesse that she planned on picking Elijah back up 11 days later, on February 23rd. But 3 days prior to her doing this, Elijah would go missing. On the morning of February 20th at 11 a.m., Jesse called 911 and said that the toddler was missing. The last time he had seen Elijah was around 8 a.m. when he had told the little boy to stand by the bed and pray. Jesse had then fallen asleep, and when he awoke hours later, Elijah was gone. An Amber Alert for the 3-year-old was immediately sent out, and the search for Elijah began. Both Jesse Vang and Elijah's mother Katrina would be brought in by detectives for questioning. When police spoke with Jesse, who was the last person believed to have seen Elijah, he told them that the night prior he had changed Elijah's diaper around 8 or 9 p.m., and then he had put the little boy in a timeout prior to his bedtime. Then, while Elijah stood in place taking his punishment, Jesse went into the other room, watched a movie, had 3 beers, and popped a muscle relaxant as a sleep aid. The next morning, Jesse had woken up around 7:30 a.m. and gotten his own special needs son ready for school. He had then walked him to his bus stop. When he had left the house, Elijah was asleep on the futon. And when Jesse returned at 8 a.m., he and Elijah had breakfast together. Following this, the little boy had been instructed to kneel at the foot of his bed and pray, while Jesse went in the other room and fell asleep, leaving Elijah completely unattended. Then, when Jesse had awoken from his nap hours later, Elijah was nowhere to be seen, and the boy's red and blue blanket was also gone. When detectives asked Jesse about the discipline that Elijah had received, he would tell them that it often consisted of Elijah standing in one spot for 1 to 3 hours and either praying or saying over and over, "I'm sorry, Mommy." Additionally, police would find out that the 3-year-old was not yet potty trained and, get this, still mostly bottle fed. Elijah also had not been allowed to play with the one toy that Jesse had in his home because he was in a constant state of timeout during those 11 days he was supposed to be there. Ridiculous. Then, when authorities began to speak with Elijah's mother, Katrina, they started to get conflicting statements, both in regards to her whereabouts as well as the events leading up to Elijah's disappearance. Katrina would also try to defend her choice to send Elijah to Jesse's home in the first place, saying that she had discussed with Jesse the limits on the punishment that she did not want to see him using on her son. But the truth was, Katrina knew the disciplinary tactics that Jesse used, and she had sent her 3-year-old over there for disciplinary reasons. She also knew the lack of care that Elijah would receive while in Jesse's home. As part of their investigation, detectives would also search both Jesse and Katrina's cell phones. It was here that they would discover Katrina had been lying to them in regards to her whereabouts because she had actually been present in Two Rivers on some of the days that Elijah had also been there at Jesse's home. Cell phone records also indicated that Jesse had informed Katrina of an incident on February 17th in which Elijah had overfilled his diaper. This led to Jesse giving him a cold shower as punishment. Apparently, Katrina had actually been at Jesse's home shortly after this incident on February 17th, and she admitted to seeing her son at that time. She had also been at Jesse's home the day prior, February 16th. Another text exchange was found between the two, in which Jesse tells Katrina to trust him and says, "I'ma make sure he hates me and being here." She replies back, "Don't want him to hate you, just fear you." Jesse then said to her, "He did fear me, but he didn't respect me. Now I'm making him respect me." There was also a photograph that had been deleted that was recovered from Katrina's phone. It was dated February 14th. It showed Elijah blindfolded, lying down on a bed, and he had what appeared to be bruises on his head, neck, and arm. There was also another photo from the next day, February 15th, that shows Elijah standing in a corner with just a diaper on that was full, and he's praying. Authorities were carrying out an intense investigation trying to locate Elijah. Their extensive search of the area included dogs being brought in, drones being flown over the area, and rivers being searched. The Two Rivers police vowed that they were leaving no stone unturned. They would additionally end up conducting searches in nearby landfills, as well as Avery Salvage Yard, the same one that belongs to Stephen Avery's family. Hundreds of volunteers would also join in the search efforts for little Elijah. The hunt for the toddler would end up expanding beyond Manitowoc County and into surrounding counties. In addition to the search effort, people also showed their support by placing blue and green ribbons and lights all around the town. Blue was Elijah's favorite color, and green is a symbol of hope for the recovery of missing children. Just days after Elijah had been reported as missing, his 31-year-old mother, Katrina, was arrested and charged with child neglect. She was held on a $15,000 cash bail. 39-year-old Jesse Vang was, of course, also arrested, and he was charged with child neglect. He was held on a $20,000 cash bail. Then, a few weeks later in March, Katrina's initial charge of child neglect was changed to chronic child neglect. After it was found that on February 16th, Katrina had left Elijah all alone in Jesse's apartment, while she and Jesse had gone to various locations throughout the city of Manitowoc. An additional charge of child neglect was also added, and this was in regards to her 6-year-old daughter. The reason for this charge was because evidence had surfaced that Katrina had left her 6-year-old alone in a car for approximately an hour on February 14th. During this time, the car was turned off in cold weather. It was February in Wisconsin after all, and the temperatures were only between 27 and 30 degrees that day. And the reason why she had left her daughter in the car was so that she could go into Jesse's apartment and have sex with him. This was discovered after police had found a text message in which Katrina told Jesse that she was going to leave the car off so that no lights would be on and it wouldn't attract any attention. She knew what she was doing was wrong, but she did it anyways. 2 additional charges of obstruction of justice were also handed down to Katrina, and this was based on the fact that she had initially told Jesse to not cooperate with authorities in finding her son. If that doesn't scream guilt, I don't know what does. During the same court hearing in which this information was revealed, Katrina's attorney also filed a motion to have her $15,000 bail reduced down to just a signature bond. He claimed that she was not a danger to the public or a flight risk. Katrina's mother, Jody Bauer, however, disagreed with this sentiment, and a statement that she had written was read aloud in court. In it, Jody explained why she thought her daughter's bail was justified, and she did not believe it should be lowered. She claimed that Katrina had struggled with anxiety and depression for years, and was known to have erratic behavior. Jody herself said she had been a victim of her daughter's verbal and mental abuse for a long time. The mistreatment was so severe that Jody asked the court to issue a no-contact order if her daughter happened to get released on bail. Katrina's mother also disclosed to the court that her daughter had cut off all ties from the family in October of 2022, following years of her volatile behavior. In one part of Katrina's mother's statement, it even said, "At this time, rather than aligning and locating her son, Katrina feels the need to reiterate what a good guy Jesse is. By aligning with him, she could potentially have access to his extended family and the ability to flee the area." Based on Katrina's mother's statement, as well as Katrina's actions during her son's disappearance, the motion to lower her bail was denied. As it should have. In my opinion, she should have been held on a higher bail. Police were still providing daily online updates on the search for Elijah. After a week of no success in finding him, the FBI began to offer a reward of $15,000 for any information that led to Elijah or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved in his disappearance. Manitowoc County Crime Stoppers was also offering a $10,000 reward. Then, on March 4th, authorities asked the public to search any video surveillance footage they may have because they were looking for a vehicle of interest. They announced that it was a beige four-door 1997 Nissan Altima that bore a Wisconsin tag starting with A and ending in 0. At this time, authorities actually already had the Altima in their possession, and they confirmed that it did not belong to either Jesse or Katrina. But they were hoping that the public had footage that was captured on February 19th, anytime between 2 p.m. and 9 p.m., the day before Elijah had gone missing. There's no further information on this vehicle of interest that I could find, but I'm assuming police believed that either Jesse or Katrina or both of them used this vehicle to dispose of Elijah's body somewhere. Around the same time, photos were released that showed Elijah and Jesse on surveillance video, just days before Elijah had disappeared. The owner of Ross Auto Services recognized Jesse Vang's name when the news of Elijah's disappearance first broke. So he checked his records and found out that Jesse had actually been a recent customer. He had come in to get an ignition interlock system, which, if you don't know, is essentially a car breathalyzer. The owner of the repair shop remembers the two coming in and said that Elijah had been quiet and sat at a table with Jesse almost the entire time. He also said that he does not remember anything being off about either one of them. The owner had then looked back at his video surveillance footage and found footage of Jesse and Elijah walking into his shop on February 16th. There were also receipts that showed that Elijah and Jesse had been at a McDonald's, also in Two Rivers, that day. This was the same day that police had previously discovered that Katrina had actually been in town. As the search for Elijah continued with no luck, his blue and red blanket was found on Goodwin Road, about 3.7 miles away from where he was last seen. This was the blanket that Jesse had told authorities Elijah had gone missing with. Also at this point, the reward for information leading to the discovery of Elijah or the arrests of anyone involved in his disappearance had risen up to $40,000, thanks to multiple local donors.
The day an Amber Alert went out burned into Jody's memory. But what really stuck out, how her daughter reacted.
She was calm. I think the investigators that called me that night said she was cold. Whether she was detached or in denial, I don't know.
Investigators say Katrina sent Elijah to stay with her boyfriend, Jesse Vang, in Two Rivers to learn how to be a man. Vang told police when he woke up from a nap February 20th, the little boy was gone.
It was the mama bear, the anger, the instinct, the hysteria that was missing that it just hit me wrong.
When you did talk to her, is she asking, where's Elijah? Is she still wanting to know where he is?
At the time, she was still believing he just walked out the door.
It's a theory Two Rivers police told 12 News they ruled out. They also don't think the 3-year-old was abducted.
I don't think Trina knows more because I think she would have broke by now.
Jody says she thinks getting answers relies on her daughter receiving mental health care.
Until we get her in touch with what's real and what's not real, we're not going to know.
Then, in July of 2024, Katrina would again ask the court to lower her bail from $15,000 down to only $5,000. But this was again denied by the judge.
Katrina Bauer appeared in Manitowoc County Court over Zoom. Her new attorney, Amber Gratz, requesting bond lowered from $15,000 to $5,000. Katrina Bauer is the mother of 3-year-old Elijah Vu, who went missing on February 20th. She's been charged with child neglect, but not directly in his disappearance.
I think that is sufficient to ensure her appearance, especially given her ties to the community and the state.
The state opposed the motion, and Elijah's father, Jimmy Vu, also addressed the court.
I'd like to ask you to deny bail due to the fact that my son is still missing, and we need answers. And I think Katrina Bauer has the answer.
Judge Robert DeWayne denied a bond reduction, but he did modify a condition barring Bauer from contact with children under the age of 18, allowing supervised contact with her children only.
In this case, supervised contact would have to be arranged, or it wouldn't be allowed.
As the search continued, Elijah's 4th birthday was celebrated at a community event in Appleton on August 25th. Then, just recently, on September 13th, 2024, Two Rivers police announced that human remains had been found by a hunter on private property just a few days earlier. And it had been confirmed that they belonged to Elijah. The thickly wooded area where the remains had been found is only about 3 miles away from the home of Jesse Vang.
Thank you all for being here. Last Saturday, Sheriff Hartwig called me immediately upon learning his deputies were responding to investigate a report of skeletal remains found by someone in the town of Two Rivers. With night falling near, the entire area was secured while a variety of resources were gathered to investigate. Ultimately, a forensic anthropologist with the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratories was able to confirm a skull and bones as human remains. On Sunday, my staff assisted the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, Department of Justice, Division of Criminal Investigation, and the Wisconsin Crime Lab with recovery of those remains and any associated evidence. The intentions of our team were to first notify family of the discovery and then alert the public. Prior to that, however, reports went out on social media and other platforms, some of which were false and most of which had yet to be confirmed. While we do feel it's important to share information with the public, our first priority is Elijah and the integrity of the investigation, as well as communication with the family. These are the facts that I can share. The remains were found on private property by a person getting his land ready for the hunting season. This land was not on Manitou Girl Scout camp property, but rather a thick wooded area with heavy underbrush, just to the north of Manitou. This location is just over 3 miles northwest of where he originally was reported missing. This area had been searched several times, as had been reported, by law enforcement searches, by private searches, by the landowner, by air, and with various search and rescue teams. Despite all those previous efforts and throughout different conditions and changing seasons, we continued searching and even had continued searches scheduled as early as next week. The remains found by the hunter and recovered by law enforcement were taken to the Wisconsin Crime Lab for DNA testing to identify the person. It is with a heavy heart that I announce to you today, those remains were identified as Elijah Vu.
So the area where Elijah's body was found had actually been searched several times. So either it was missed multiple times or it was placed there after the area had already been cleared.
The woman who keeps her horse at this property now tells us Katrina Bauer, Elijah's mom, once lived at this property right across the street from where law enforcement says a hunter discovered those human remains Saturday. 12 News has obtained a photo that shows Bauer holding little Elijah in the hand of a little girl who we are not identifying. Her mother, Elijah's grandma, confirmed that her daughter did indeed live there for a time. The blue railing and cement front steps in the photo match the property right across the street from that wooded area where a deer hunter found skeletal remains. Take a look, News Chopper 12 with the exclusive view of investigators combing through the wooded area across the street Sunday night in rural Manitowoc County. A mobile command unit set up several law enforcement vehicles on the property near Camp Manitou.
Elijah's mother, Katrina, also came out with a statement after her son's body had been discovered. She said that she was just devastated by the recent news, and she had continued to have hope that he would be found alive. Since the discovery of little Elijah's body, a memorial outside of his former home has continued to grow as the community mourns his loss. Police have not yet provided a timeline for when they might determine or release his cause of death. Well, thank you for listening to Elijah's story today. I absolutely think that his mother, Katrina, knows more than she's leading on. I think that she was either there when Elijah died or shortly thereafter to help dispose of his body. This so-called mother pretty much invited Jesse to hurt her child. She knew exactly what he was capable of, but still asked him to discipline her son Elijah. Why she was even with him after what he had done to her, I still don't understand. Letting her son stay with Jesse was not only extremely irresponsible, but honestly insane. What do you think? Was Katrina involved with her son's death and/or cover-up of his death? Or did she just know about it and keep it a secret for Jesse? Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon, so check it out on patreon.com/awickedworld, or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims are never forgotten, and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a story you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email to awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.